Eagles Talk A2D live here Monday night, talking the DeVonta Smith extension, potential Eagles targets in the upcoming NFL draft, and much more. Of course, Bowen on the Birds. Hop in the chat, join the conversation with us.
You love the Eagles, let me get a hell yeah! You love the Philadelphia Eagles, let me get a hell yeah! Philadelphia!
Never get tired of hearing Jason Kelsey, I gotta say. Welcome in, everybody. Live A2D Radio. We're back full panel tonight for Eagles Talk A2D. Big news today dropping with the DeVonta Smith extension. Jesus, I know.
You made a super wide receiver, man.
For a couple weeks, guys. I'm a little rusty. But talking to DeVonta Smith extension, potential NFL draft Eagles targets. Show a little love to our sponsors here. Baggio's Bread, located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. They're home of the best stuffed breads, tomato pie sandwiches, much more. Let them know. A2D sent you. You get 10% off of all your in-store purchases. I'm Chrome, joined as always by Rob Brinkman, Pete Evans, Chuck Moranin. We'll have our guests right around the 9:15 point. Les Bowen joining us. Guys, let's dive right in. Opening topic right away. Big news dropping today, and how is this going to affect the Eagles going forward, right? DeVonta Smith's extension will affect A.J. Brown's future with the Philadelphia Eagles. Do you agree, disagree? Wherever you're at, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you're joining us, chime in, drop in your comments. We want to know, do you agree or disagree? We're going to start going around here. Rob Brinkman, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, no, not really. I mean, this is a throwing league. This is an offensive league. You need more than one receiver. Like, he got the same AAV as A.J. Brown did last year. A.J. Brown's going to play this year. Then he's going to want another new deal because he's not going to want to play in the last year of his contract. But you need multiple playmakers in today's NFL. Like, you don't sign one and let one go. And we're going to talk about all the great receivers that we have in the draft, which they're loaded at receivers we are in this draft. So, I mean, not only will this affect – I disagree with the poll. A.J. Brown should be here. DeVonta Smith should be here. And I do expect the receivers to dip their toes into the receiver player pool in this upcoming draft, whether it's at 22 or one of the second-round picks. So I don't think this affects A.J. Brown's future with the team at all.
Yeah, it is a deep, particularly a wide receiver, a deep pool this year. Pete Evans?
I agree with Brinkman in the fact of short term, I don't think it affects his future. But if you ask me, if we're looking at this question, if we were to put 5 years down the road or 4 years down the road, I definitely think it affects A.J. Brown's future. I think you're going to see DeVonta Smith in the Eagles uniform longer than you'll see A.J. Brown. That's just what my heart tells me right now in this moment. Now they're both getting kind of paid the same amount. Like Brink said, ABV is about the same. AAV is about the same average annual salary, right? So right around 25 mil, 51 mil guarantee, but it locks the core up. But I think what AJ has 2 years left on his deal, if I'm not mistaken. So this is his year. Then next year is his last year, maybe a dead year. We'll see. But once again, if the cap keeps going up, they keep making money hand over fist. Right. So if they keep doing that, and from that aspect, they could afford it, right? As long as but if you're doing this, if this is where your resources are going, right, then other positions that you're not putting as much money into, you have to hit on talent. You have to hit on value. But 4 years down the road, I think it does definitely affect A.J. Brown's future. But once again, between this season, next season, we'll see, because they could go out and draft a wide receiver in this loaded class that could make A.J. Brown more expendable. Even though I think he's the unicorn of what he does in the league, I don't think there's other guys like him. But I've been a DeVonta Smith fan over A.J. Brown ever since I can remember. So that's just me. I could be in the minority. That's just me. Kid won the Heisman and still continue to ball out, and he balled out in the wild card round against Tampa Bay. He was one of the only Eagles to ever show up. So this kind of shows you what kind of guy you're dealing with.
Chucks?
I am going to agree to the poll. I think that Now, where I will take a step back on is I don't think this is anything new. I think this was, for one, at least myself, and I know a lot of other people, we knew this was coming. This was expected. This is nothing new. I know there was a contingent of Eagles fans out there that were really worried that this wasn't going to get done, but we knew this was going to get done. Howie Roseman was not going to let DeVonta Smith out of the building. It just wasn't going to happen. So this was expected. And to remain on course with that, DeVonta Smith's extension was always going to be expected to affect AJ Brown's future, in my opinion. Like, it is tough to look at the Bengals. There's been rumors, obviously, about T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and how long that duo will remain in Cincinnati. Whether that's this year or next year, pretty sure Higgins is going to be out the door. All right, because Jamar Chase is the number one guy there. So it's hard to keep two wide receivers that are getting paid as much as they are on your roster when you especially consider the fact that in the drafts, and we talk about this year's draft being loaded wide receiver, Ben Solak from The Ringer brought up a really great point. With the way the college game is, and even with youth football 7-on-7s, I don't think you're going to ever see a draft where the wide receiver class isn't going to be loaded. Like, you're always going to have options now. There's always going to be guys you can get on day 2 or even early day 4 or day 3. I mean, where they're going to be able to excel at a certain role, and you're going to find sleepers. So, like, that's the wide receiver position. It's loaded every single year. There are going to be options. So, I think going forward, we have to keep in the back of our minds that it's a very realistic possibility. AJ Brown could be out the door even after this season. Like, AJ Brown has a potential out on his contract after this year. The dead cap would be 15 mil as opposed to 26 or 41 the next 2 years. So it's like, you don't want to hope for it or expect it, but we gotta have to prepare that it's a possibility depending on how things fall. So I think DeVonta Smith's extension absolutely affects AJ Brown's future with the Eagles, and I think that's no breaking news.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what Pete said too, right? DeVonta Smith will be in the uniform longer than AJ. I mean, just youth-wise alone, and a guy for all intents and purposes, a homegrown talent now at this point. Mm-hmm. You would expect that anyway. So not like Chuck said, not breaking news on anything. But the thing is, if they want to keep these guys together longer than beyond this year, say, I know Chuck, you threw out a lot of dead cap numbers there. We have the GM who can make it happen. And that's one thing I think we have to remember, right? Is that Howie makes magic happen quite a bit. But to Brakeman's point too, if you're preparing for the future, this is kind of one of the years where you may want to look into that and prepare for the possibility. But I disagree to the poll because I think that Howie has ways of making things happen. Winning makes guys want to stick around. So I think it's an important year in terms of that. I think this team coming out and making a statement affects AJ Brown's future more with the organization than I think the DeVonta Smith extension. I mean, if anything, I would think that AJ would want to be here with the commitment with AJ or with DeVonta that he's going to be here as well going forward. So
right.
I think for me personally, I would have to disagree to the poll question here. Lots of people chiming in over here on the book, on YouTube, on Twitter. Appreciate you guys. Hit that like and hit that subscribe while you're at it. Keep dropping those comments in. And we had a couple other little questions here already.
Yeah, we don't want to put that one up.
Yep.
Jake Koch, says, ex-Panther wideout Steve Smith says Malachi Corley is king of yak. What do you guys think? I'm with it. What do you guys think? It's him? Or I don't know how to say that last name.
I mean, Corley's cool, but there's something real quick. I want to go back to what Chuck said, about what Solak said. If that's the case, why pay these dudes then? Why hasn't the wide? So it sounds like in the next 5 to 10 years, if the wide receiver position is always going to be somewhat loaded, you're going to have those outliers, right? Could you envision a wide receiver position ever be looked at as a running back position? Hell, Kansas City just did it and won back-to-back Super Bowls.
No, that's a great question. To your
You
point,
see what I'm
though,
saying? Like
yeah. That's a great question to ask. I don't think the wide receiver position is ever going to be the value to the point of running back because the nature of the game right now, 3 wide receivers are going to be starting. Every team essentially, 11 personnel is the norm, right? So every team is going to need 3 wide receivers. So you're going to need that kind of depth. You need to go 3 wide receivers deep. You don't have to have like 3 elite wide receivers, but you need to have 3 contributors. So then the demand is always going to I don't want to say match, but it's going to be near that need. But I think my point is like you want to pay the elite guys, right? So AJ Brown worth paying, DeVonta Smith worth paying in a vacuum. But when you have 2 of them that you're paying high money, it starts to become a question of, okay, do I really need to pay 2 of them, or can I find someone in the draft to supplement enough to where I can save and draft a guy who could be, close to what that second wide receiver is going to be. It's not, and I'm not, in no way am I saying that it's going to be easy to find AJ Brown. The Titans are learning that the hard way. They drafted, I forget what his guy, Traylon Burks,
yeah.
AJ Brown, and he's a fraction of what AJ Brown is. So I'm not saying it's easy to find the next AJ Brown. I'm saying that the supply will always be there. So if Howie does find a situation where, okay, like AJ Brown wants to be paid, to be the highest paid wide receiver now, is it worth it to continue with that, or do I have to look at the draft and younger pieces? That's something.
I answer that. Nope, it ain't worth it, because when's the last time the team that won the Super Bowl had the best wide receiver in the league or the top 5? Hell, when we won Super Bowl 52, could you say we had a true top 5 wide receiver?
No.
All I'm saying is, listen, that's all well and good. You could pay the elite. That's in any walk of life, any work, any line of work. The elite is going to get paid, but is the elite at that position going to bring you championships?
I think it obviously. My answer is always going to be elite players will always help you, and that goes for any position. The thing is, if you have 2 elite wide receivers, is that surplus where you can subtract that second elite wide receiver and have it go toward another elite position elsewhere. You get what I'm saying? Like, I would love it. I mean,
I got you, but that's why I said if they don't do it, if they don't invest, the biggest thing is with this move, and then we'll move on, is that they're investing $50 million a year now in wide receivers. And like Chrome said, very well put. If any GM can do it, it's how he can do it. But now you put even more emphasis on hitting on the positions and the players where you're looking for bargains at, where you can't put that much money into.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Exactly. So now those have to pan out, because if you make a mistake, you don't have the financial resources easily available. I will never say never with Howie, but easily available that you could easily tap into to make something happen. Hell, I don't even know how much cap space they got now after this move. They probably still got 20-something million cap space.
I think it's like 20-something. Yeah, I think it's like 20-something.
They still can go. They can still buy. I would say this, after drafted, Justin Simmons probably will still be an Eagle this year. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I can see it happening.
Well, I think to your point too, right, Pete? So when you're paying the quarterback already, and then you got to pay the 2 wide receivers, you have to hit on these draft picks, right? That's what's so key now at this point, which is, again, why I think if there's a year where you go with an insurance plan or a guy who could be your wide receiver 3 who could eventually step into it too, this is the year to do it, right? The wide receiver pool is really deep. And if you want to pair somebody with DeVonta, right, beyond AJ, I think this is the year to go out and make that happen. Rudy Poo over here says, pick up Johan Rojas to play wide receiver 3 since he can't hit water if he fell out of a boat.
That guy, that's the best comment we've had on the show since we started that one.
There you go, Rudy Poo. You got the crown from Brinkman. So let's see if anybody could top it tonight. Brian Daly says he would love for it to happen, Pete. Simmons could be extremely helpful for the defense to help get the Fangio scheme going, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it would be shocking if they were able to hang on to both guys going forward. I do, I like that you put those numbers out there, Chucks, in terms of what the cap hit does look like, because it is a little concerning after this year. If you make that decision too late, what kind of a dead cap hit you're looking at down the road, right?
Yep.
Charles
Yeah.
Allen says it shouldn't, but the receivers want to get paid. Never mind that in today's world. Nobody, it seems, knows how to honor a contract that they signed.
Well, teams don't honor the contracts either.
Exactly.
Yeah, it goes
If
both
you're gonna
ways.
say
Thank you,
that,
Brink.
you gotta play it
Yeah,
both ways.
NFL's a different monster, especially
Look
when
at
it
the
comes.
Browns. The Browns asked Nick Chubb to take a pay cut after his injury. Like this is why you always have to side with the player. Almost always have to side
They
with the
need to
player.
be asking a quarterback to take a pay cut. That's what they need to be doing. They need to be structuring that deal if they can.
I
I
mean,
mean,
all
honestly,
these wide receivers are groupies. They all want the ball.
Yes.
They all want all the stats. They want to score all the touchdowns, and they want to win all the games. Show me a receiver that's not that. I'll show you a loser receiver. That's what you want at that position. Now, it can't go overboard. Go ahead.
No, you're fine, Brink.
Yeah,
the commodity right now. If you have two. I mean, dare I say, Howie's holding the cards, waiting. Maybe he can get blown out the water with a trade. Josh Allen needs help. You know what I mean? Like, there's teams out there. Hell, Rashee Rice, he about to go away. Kansas City, they really don't need something. But would Big Red like to have something? Probably. He definitely would like to have something on the outside. You know what I mean? It's a good problem to have. It's a great topic. It's a great debate. We've gone 16 minutes in, you know what I mean? And we're still talking about it because I think there's a way you can really agree and disagree to the same pole because it's just the perspective that you're looking at it from, right?
Yeah. Howie's also being very clever. Howie's also being very clever with this offseason. Mm-hmm. He's doing the exact opposite of what he did with Carson Wentz. Like, he's giving Jalen Hurts every freaking resource he needs to be good. It's to the point now where, like, if this offense isn't a top 5 offense and you're not ripping off 30 spots every week, either everyone and their mother got injured or Jalen Hurts stinks. So it's going to be easy to figure out if you have the guy at quarterback after this season.
And then what happens then? If he does stink, then who's heads next? Then it's Sirianni. You see what I'm saying? Like, all the pressure.
If Jalen Hurts isn't good, then a lot of people are going to lose their jobs here.
Yeah, like, honestly, like, it's all the pressure's on one. All the pressure is on one, because, like you just said, Brinks, he's been given everything from the offensive position, the offensive line. All right, losing Kelsey, all timer. That's gonna suck. But you inked in Dickerson, you inked in Mailata. Lane's probably going to pay another 2 or 3 more years, right? So now you got to just hope Tyler Steen or Cam Jurgens plays out at right guard. But the line still, even losing Kelsey, is still probably a top 10 line in the league. Is good enough to win with. Then you got a 3-down back, a feature back now with Saquon. Now you got Kellen Moore. You see how Kellen Moore used Keenan Allen, and then when back in the day when Kellen Moore was in Dallas, Des Bryant used to kill us all the time. That's AJ. You know what I mean? Maybe even to another level. So for this offense, yeah, if we're losing games, we got to be losing games 38-37, 42-41, so 41-38, something like that. Like this, there's no reason why this team shouldn't be able to put up 40, almost close to average close to 32, 35 points a game. Especially now with the new banning the drop tackle, the hip drop tackle. That just made it even more. It made it easier to get points because I don't know what these defensive players can do, right? So you made it more advantageous for the offense because defensive players now have to play with 1.5 hands tied behind their back or how they tackle, right? So, and the most honestly, when the last time we could say this outside of the quarterback position? When can you say that the Eagles had the best skill position group in the league?
Never.
Like I'm saying this
2010.
Yeah, Shady, Backlund, and Deshaun.
I think that's the last time I can think of. You know what I mean?
Like it's right there between them. And I can't even. People are gonna say the Niners. Guess what? My boy went out, and I can't wait till he leave.
Yeah,
I can't wait till IU going because he went out. Yep. That is, you talk about a ship that's going down that's on its way to being capsized. That's the San Francisco 49ers right now.
They paid the wrong receiver out there.
Oh, yep. Did they ever? Did they ever?
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. Yeah, good to have you back. Good timing too, because we're
Yeah.
about.
No, I was working through some technical difficulties that I had to get our guests a new link here. So, without further ado, great conversation, great time for him to jump in here. We want to welcome in the legend himself, Les Bowen, joining us for Bowen on the Birds here on Eagles Talk A2D. Les, how are you this week, brother?
Yeah, nice try giving me the wrong link, but I got here anyway. Gosh darn it.
Listen,
I'm good.
it's
What
been
are
a
we
long
talking
couple
about?
of weeks for me, Les. I had WrestleMania. I was sick. I've been off a couple of weeks there.
That's all right. What are we talking about here?
Well, Les, we're talking. Let's jump back into the poll, and for everybody out there, please continue to comment in, like, subscribe, follow. We're talking about the DeVonta Smith extension, and if this will affect AJ Brown's future with the Philadelphia Eagles, as well as the potential of drafting maybe a wide receiver, an offensive weapon in the early rounds, maybe the first 2 days of the draft, that could potentially be a backup plan if AJ Brown is gone after this season. So what are your thoughts on that, Les?
Well, I haven't really looked in depth at the contract, but it certainly solidifies that he's going to be here, which AJ's only 26. He being DeVonta. AJ's only 26. I wouldn't get too. I'm gonna say it doesn't really affect it too much. The money at the wide receiver position is going to be big. Drafting a guy this year won't affect it at all because the first year of a rookie, isn't going to be a big cap problem at all. I don't think it'll. If he plays well and he's healthy, they'll find room. I mean, it's a great situation to have. I don't think they're trying to push AJ out. They wanted to get DeVonta done before, like you might have seen Justin Jefferson wasn't at the OTA or whatever it is, the off-season workouts.
CeeDee Lamb skipped as well.
For the Vikings. Chase has got to do a contract. They wanted to get in. That's what Howie likes to do. He likes to see other people set the market for him. He wanted to get his number out there, and they can worry about what they have to do with their guys rather than him having to read those contracts and say, "Oh, geez," But I don't think it necessarily has a lot to do with AJ Brown. I could be wrong, but that's my off the cuff take.
I think more so, if anything affects AJ Brown, it's going to be the success of the team, right? I don't think, it's going to be the success of the draft,
right? Because
the one thing, and we mentioned it earlier, Les, is when you're paying two wide receivers and you're paying a quarterback, you got to hit on your draft picks because you're starting to load up a whole lot of money. Plus, now you're paying Saquon Barkley as well. Right. Add him into the mix. Yeah. Dallas Goedert's making a decent amount of coin. There's a lot of money invested on the offensive side of the ball. So especially defensively now at this point, they need some of these guys they drafted already to hit.
Oh, absolutely.
To support that offense. And guys this year, I think it's a really important draft for them to bounce back. Again, not just for the immediate impact this year, but to be able to start to compensate for some of these aging veterans.
Yeah, that's the thing. People get really hung up on the draft looking at 2024. The reality is, Jalen Carter was kind of an outlier. Often you don't have any rookies really starting, for a really good team. You're looking to get people in place with your draft. This year, the Eagles, so far, you would say maybe they need some more help this year at corner. If they happen to get a corner at 22, that guy might start right away. But the last time they drafted a corner in the first round was Lito Shepherd, and he couldn't get on the field to save his life as a rookie, and he turned out to be a pretty good player. Lito was drafted 26th overall. They do have to do well in this draft for the future. They had a situation after their Super Bowl in 2017-18 where the fact that they had drafted poorly for several years going into that really kind of helped turn things into a disaster by 2020, for Doug Peterson. Those bad drafts with the Marcus Smiths and even Aguilar and some of the other guys, J.J. Arcegas, Whiteside, I'm glad I don't have to say that very often anymore. You can't. You do need this. You do need to draft well, but you need to draft well for like 2025, 26. You shouldn't have to have a great draft to have a good team this year, but they might. If it's a corner, they get high. That guy could start this year, I think. Mm-hmm. So we'll see.
They got to prepare for the cover to be bare.
Yeah,
you got to start shopping for maybe not next week's groceries, but 6 months down the road groceries. Absolutely. You got to start shopping for that menu that you're going to have and start buying those ingredients, because, like we said, really on the offensive line, honestly, and the defensive line, that's really where you need it, and that's Howie's forte to build in the trenches, right? And now it's just those picks have to pan out.
Well, there's a lot of really interesting stuff to get into here. One thing I'll let you guys set the table, but one thing I wanted to make sure to mention is I'll give each of you $5 if Howie drafts at 22.
I was literally, you read my mind. I'm like, he's not.
By the way, I don't think there's any chance they stay in 22.
Howie jokes about having ADD, but he never drafts. Where even if he goes up, no, he actually does that. He'll make a sort of aside about it, but he's got to, even if he only moves up a couple spots, he always tries to move up.
Yep.
If he can't move up, he might move back. But 22, I'll argue against my point for a second. 22 might be a spot to get a corner or a tackle, offensive tackle. I don't think you're going to get a great edge rusher there that you couldn't get in the second round. It looks like, from what everybody's saying. Hell, I don't know. But, it kind of depends on how the board falls. If all these quarterbacks go high, half dozen quarterbacks, then, 22 could be a great spot to be in. I don't know. But with Howie, I expect movement. I really do. And the A.J. Brown thing 3 years ago, he can trade for a veteran. He's got 2 second-round picks. We don't know. We didn't know A.J. Brown was available 3 years ago. All sorts of stuff can happen on draft night. But Howie at 22, I'll be a little bit surprised.
Well, Marshall wants to know, what's the likelihood they move up and maybe not trade out, trade back?
Yeah, he would rather move up. He doesn't trade back very much. And now, did they trade back in the Goddard year, or did they just not have a first rounder because of the
No, was that
they traded back, didn't they?
They traded back. That's the year they gave up the pick turn to Lamar Jackson.
Okay. Yep, you're right. Well, I was going to say the 2 times before that were Marcus Smith. They traded back and ended up with Marcus Smith, and Kevin Cobb. Trading back sounds better than it usually turns. When you have 2 second-round picks already, I don't see.
Right. You don't want to get that mumble jump. You don't want to get that
unless you want to own the second round and be Sam Hinkie or something. I just don't see. I don't see that. I would look to trade up, but not necessarily real far. Usually they say there's 15 to 18 to 20 real true first round players in every draft. Get one of those guys. You don't have to get the guy at 10 or anything like that, but get the 19 or something. I don't know.
Right. I think you got out from Matt Curley for you here. Hey fellas, see some of my favorite guys. I'm sold. I remember reading Les Bowen's pieces in the Daily News about hockey.
Yeah. Well, you're pretty old then, because that was 89 to 2002. It was a lot of fun.
Curly's he's one of our favorite guys over there. We had another question here for you, actually, Les. Where are we at here? Kind of regards Kellen Moore. How much input has Kellen Moore put into the Eagles brass in locking up all their offensive players? Obviously, going along the lines with going out and getting Saquon, and then you go out and you give the extension to DeVonta at this point. What are your thoughts on that?
I wish I knew. I mean, how in the world would anybody know that right now? I mean, it's a good question. It's an excellent question. I'm not making fun of the question, but we haven't even heard from Kellen Moore. He hasn't even been introduced to. They haven't even had a press conference with Kellen Moore, so we don't know. That's really locking up is kind of Howie's gig. He's I don't think he needs anybody to really remind him to do that. But I don't know. Yeah, maybe Kellen does have some. Did say, boy, let's get this DeVonta thing done. I don't think Howie would need that impetus, but it's possible.
Yeah, we got 145 viewers right now, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow, comment on everything here.
Absolutely.
We love getting all your comments. Les loves to answer your comments. We have a super chat in here actually for you, Les.
If Howie doesn't draft a guy who can tackle or cover in the first round, a bottom 5 defense, I don't know. Bottom 5, we'll see. Do you mean positionally? Do you mean a corner there?
Yes, Rudy Poo. Thanks, Rudy Poo, for your comment here. Super chat says if Howie doesn't draft a guy who can tackle in or cover in the first round, we'll be bottom 5 in defense. I will have no hope.
Yeah, that's a little strong.
So pessimistic.
It's a very, very overreactionary.
They're not, guys. We know they're not picking a linebacker,
right?
And
in fact,
right.
I saw a stat. I was actually looking up things, which usually I just sort of wing it, but the 33rd Team website did a study a couple years ago about, I think they were looking at the 13 through 17 drafts and guys who got second contracts at different positions. Linebackers, there were 10 first-round linebackers in those years. 2 of them got second contracts. And safety was even worse. Safety was 2 out of 13.
You mean from the team who drafted
them?
Second contracts from that to me is a very good indicator of whether a guy's a decent pick or not. I mean, you can start, if you're a first-round pick, you can start for a bad team for a while.
Yeah.
Because they don't have anybody else. But if 4 years in, if you get that second deal, maybe you're not everything that they would have hoped, but you're a viable player, And at some positions, it's just a lot easier than others. Offensive tackle is an easier one. Corner, actually, I think 9 out of 23 got the second deal in first-round corners. It's you have to be careful. You don't want to, if you draft strictly for need, you're Sam Bowie-ing yourself. And I guess you guys know what I mean by that, right? The Portland Trailblazers had a chance to draft Michael Jordan. Jack Ramsey from Philly was the general manager, and they needed a center, so they drafted Sam Bowie from Kentucky. You look at what you need, but you also look at what's there and what's really gonna, if there's a guy on the board that's going to be a Hall of Fame player, you think, and it's not a position that you're really bereft at, you take the Hall of Fame player, which I know we were talking when the list of stuff you sent me, you were asking about the tight end, Bowers. Have you guys discussed that yet?
Not yet.
Good time. Good way to segue in, Les. Let's go.
Yeah. Okay.
What are your thoughts on that?
If he's there at 22, hey, to me, Dallas Goedert is a kid, but 2018 was a while ago now, and they don't have much behind him. And, if you do have the 2 second-rounders, if Bowers is that good, hey, go get him. Yeah, I wouldn't trade up for him, but if he's sitting there at 22 and he's the best player on your board at 22, sure, you can use 2 tight ends. Eagles have been known to do that. They had a very good tight end in Zach Ertz, about the same age that Goddard is now in 2018. So, I'd definitely do that. If it wouldn't bother me, but then you've really got that second round. You got to be looking hard at corner and offensive.
Spotlight gets big on those second round picks, Les.
Yeah,
for sure. The only way something like that happens at 22 with Brock is you have to hope and pray before 22, Bo Nix names gets called and JJ McCarthy names gets called.
Yeah, and trickle down.
You need players like that to push them down.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you got, Chucky?
And that's quite possible. Everybody loves these quarterbacks. Reality says that they're not all going to be good.
Oh, yeah.
But you know, a lot of teams want quarterbacks, and there are people that like every one of those guys. You know, so
yeah. I mean, I agree. I would love Bowers at 22. It's hard to see him falling that far, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility because you look at the teams in the top 10, like because if you stack them, Bowers is absolutely a top 10 talent. But the teams in the top 10, it's hard to see any of them taking Bowers.
Yeah.
So now you get into the teens,
right.
and there are a few guys. There are a few teams. I think the Bengals stand out as a team that absolutely would be an ideal situation with Bowers. But if they don't go with Bowers, he's in striking distance in terms of falling to 22. And if he falls to you at 22, I think it's like you said, Les. You can make it work because he can complement Dallas Goedert really well because he's not a traditional inline tight end. He doesn't, his forte isn't blocking. So you put him in different positions, and he could absolutely be something that is very productive in this offense and set the stage.
I totally agree. Yeah. Yep. And, you know, that's what the league is, throwing to the tight end. Nobody drafts, especially not high. Nobody drafts a blocking tight end. You can pick one of those guys up from the scrap heap anytime you want one. Yep. But you know, you really want to be good at that position. That's a key position. Dallas gets hurt, you know, that's happened. It might give me a little pause that, I mean, they are running a new offense this year, but last year's offense seemed to have no use for Dallas Goedert for some reason. I don't know why.
Very bizarre.
But that would not keep me from picking him. No. Exactly. But you mentioned top 10. One thing I have noticed in watching drafts, name a top 10 tight end in recent years who really delivered the goods.
They all
Kyle Pitts was the guy.
I was going to say Kyle Pitts, but Atlanta doesn't know what
he doesn't have a quarterback, but you know, he has not been anywhere near what people thought he was going to be.
He had a great rookie year, and then he got hurt, and then the combined with Arthur Smith, and then Desmond Ridder, it just hasn't panned out. I mean, we'll see if he pans out with Kirk Cousins, but
we're going to see what he's really. I think we're going to see what he's made of this year.
Yeah, and I hope he does well. He's kind of a localish guy, and you know, I wish him well.
The Eagles did go out and sign C.J. Uzomah, so they have put a little bit of depth there with Dallas Goedert.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of a surprising signing at the time that they made it, but I like the move for that.
Well, I don't think they're paying. You know, if he doesn't make the team, I don't think they owe him any money. You know, I mean, it's just good to have guys around. You know, that you never know what's going to happen, and it's a veteran guy who's been in the league, and you know, you lost Stoll, so let's see this guy. Maybe he can make it.
Les, Isaiah Rodgers is yet to be reinstated by the NFL. Do you have any insight on that? Are we going to have this guy?
I would think they are. Nothing has happened as far as I'm concerned. He hasn't bet on anything else since.
Well, they're saying because he bet on like the games like he was in while he was on the field, so allegedly, supposedly. So like, they're still thinking about it.
My impression was when they picked him up, it was a 1-year thing. If they're going to reevaluate that would be a pretty big deal because 2 years out of somebody's career is a lot. I thought this would be over by now. I don't really know a lot about it. I didn't really cover it, but I think he's a good player. I think he could very well be like the nickel guy this year. I know they brought Avante back on a 1-year deal, but Avante's been hurt so much. I wish him well, but I can't believe they're really counting on Avante. You know, I think Avante's here, and it'll be nice if he can get some snaps for them. You know, I would think that would be done. I don't know why it isn't done. I haven't talked to anybody who the league doesn't really tell you stuff like that, but I'm surprised. I'm surprised with the offseason thing starting. I thought they'd get that cleared up.
Mm-hmm.
There hasn't been a beef about it at all.
No,
at all. I forgot he was on I knew he was on the team, but I'm like, right. You know what? Like right around this time, this is when players who were deemed ineligible this is where you start to hear those reinstatements, like before the draft, right?
Yeah.
Because then the team can know, all right, what am I working with going into the draft as far as my personnel, my roster now? That's odd, but I didn't hear that tidbit that he was betting, like he had bet on games that he was in and participated in while he was.
He was like Hammer and Jonathan Taylor rushing props like the whole one season when Jonathan Taylor was just going off.
Okay.
Like, that's what I read. Who knows what source
Yeah.
I read it from, if it was reputable, but that's supposedly that's. I mean, if you just get reinstated because of that, I can't really be mad because that's just
Right.
do not move.
And the props are going to be the props are really a dangerous area for sports betting because that's something that an individual player can affect in a team sport.
Yes.
You know, I think leagues are going to be all over that because that has just a tremendous potential for abuse. And anytime they see a lot of money going into a prop, they're going to be shining the bright light. That's for sure.
Did you see the guy did you see the guy in the NBA that was just betting his under?
That's what I was referring to. Yeah.
He's like, I play 5 minutes a game. I might as well like make some money. Like, cool.
That's no.
Listen, I have one here for you. I'm gonna put a comment up real quick. Your thoughts on this? If Hurts doesn't get it done this year or have a great year, then we have to move on from him. This team is too talented.
There's some edgy people out here tonight. Jeez,
there's no way.
There's a lot.
Not just tonight.
There's no way. Can I just, Les, before you answer that, if we were to get rid of Jalen Hurts after this season, his dead cap hit would set an all-new record, exceeding the Broncos' dead cap hit from trading away Russell Wilson, because the dead cap hit would be at $107 million.
Right.
There's no way.
I just can't imagine that he's going to be that. He wasn't that bad last season. I mean,
he wasn't.
It was disappointing. The season was disappointing, but overall, it wasn't a terrible year. In fact, mid-season, he was, doing pretty well. It was clear that he wasn't comfortable in the offense, but he wasn't, throwing 20 interceptions a game or, having just meltdowns that cost them games or anything like that. He was a decent quarterback last year. If he's as good as he was last year, I think he's still here. I think at that point, though, they're starting to maybe look for, what's going on here. How, what maybe we need to do something else, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, what do I know? But I expect him to be good this year with Kellen Moore and with given the overall I think if the defense is better, I think the offense will be better. I think there is a lot of pressure on the offense down the stretch because the defense couldn't stop anybody. And the offense would be sitting there on the sidelines through these 8, 10, 12 play touchdown drives and think, okay, now we got to go back out there. I just think it was a bad mix all the way around. I don't think it said a lot about Jalen Hurts that was negative.
I think it was a very vanilla offense, right? Yeah. There wasn't a whole lot. I mean, we talked about 100 times, but we sat there on Monday Night Football on the Manning Cast and watched CMC, Christian McCaffrey, basically call out the plays live on the air.
Yeah. Sequence and everything.
That was embarrassing. It's happened a couple of times this year. So I think you look at that. I think you look at, I'm with you, Les. I think Kellen Moore is a guy who runs a little bit more of a dynamic offense. He utilizes the running back really well. And I think that's why getting a guy like a Saquon Barkley to run behind this offensive line, having Jalen's skill set as something to complement that, to create, another option you have to look out for. Again, if he doesn't have a great year this year, then I'm not saying, we got to move on because we can't. You just financially you can't for a few years. But
typically what happens is, I think he might have a really great year, but typically what happens is the guy has a better year, but there's still a dialogue around, how good is he? If they don't win the Super Bowl, is he really the guy? This guy quotes this stat that says he's really good. This guy quotes that stat that says he could have been better. That's, I've covered Donovan McNabb for many, many years. Very rarely is it just black and white where you have, oh, this guy's the greatest ever, or this guy's the worst in the world, and you've got to get rid of him. Usually you're somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, 100%. I find it very hard to believe, and I don't think he had a terrible. The turnovers were a little concerning at some points in the year.
Yeah,
but I also think he was kind of forcing some opportunities there.
Yeah, he was. That's what I was talking about with that defense. I think he really thought he had to, go lights out.
He had to take advantage of every opportunity that he had.
Yeah, and
What's
I think.
that?
No, I was saying, like you were saying, Les, he had to take advantage of every opportunity because he felt as if his back was against the wall. I mean, the Arizona game is perfect. Like you were up 21 and you still lost. Like, I mean, it's just
and you don't know. I mean, you don't know if he was hurt. He looked hurt for a few weeks there in the middle of the season. And again, that's not me giving an excuse whatsoever, but you have to look at all the other factors that factor in to the end result of the year.
Yeah.
I find it very hard to believe that we have to get rid of him,
right,
based off of the 2 years ago and then this year. And unless he has an atrocious year.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, Les, then you start saying, okay, well, maybe we need to have a contingency plan just in case.
Right.
It's more realistic that this is, if they do have a lackluster year or they underperform, the money shows you, all right, they're not getting everything hurts, but there could be a new coach. And that's the one thing. I think it was a while ago when Les first came on, where you had Charles's comment up. He said they want to lock down the players for Kellen Moore. And it's not even really about that. It's really about maybe the next coach that you may go after. They have a lot to work with already, and that's under contract, because you're going to have Saquon, you're going to have AJ, now you're going to have DeVonta, and now you would still have Jalen. That would be the biggest selling point. But the money shows you that the most logical next step if this team underperforms is changing the head coach.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I agree.
That's the matter.
Yeah.
I think it's just as likely as a guy for guys like DeVonta Smith and AJ Brown, and especially Saquon Barkley, to have career years without having as much put on each individual shoulder because of how dynamic this team can be, and having a quarterback like Jalen, who other teams have to game plan for him. Like, it's not like Kirk Cousins, who you know what you're going to get, right? Get him out of the pocket and then see what happens. Make him make a mistake. Jalen is an offensive weapon in and of his own before he even throws a football. And I think that as much as we're concerned with what we saw from last year, I think that also tees us up to have the very real expectation that a couple guys might have some real career years this year.
Yep. I wouldn't doubt that a bit.
So, anything else for Les before we let this gentleman have the rest of his evening back?
There was, no, I think that's it for me.
I'm actually doing some writing. I'll plug that while I'm on here on that all PHLY site, which is.
I was going to congratulate you, Les. I was going to say congrats on the gig.
It's they've been mostly a podcasting site, but they want to get some writing on, and they've got me and Jim Salisbury.
Okay.
They're talking to some other people, so there'll be some writing on there. It might be worth subscribing to. Who knows? But it's not going to be anything too heavy. I don't have an Eagles credential anymore or anything like that to go down there and ask people questions. But I will be, writing from my vantage point as somebody who's been around a long time. So I'm looking forward to it, just as I look forward to this every Monday.
Hey, this last we're happy to see you back writing, and I mean, you've been writing. You have your blog. You have other things that you have going on, but it's always good when we get to find as many avenues as we can to find a Les Bowen piece. So we always appreciate. Yeah, we appreciate your time every week, Les.
Thanks, Chrome. Thank you, guys.
We'll be back next week with Bowen on the Birds, and we want to thank you again, Les, for your time, and we'll talk to you next week.
My pleasure. Have fun.
We got draft coverage.
Thank you, Les, as always.
Right? So, Take care, Les.
All righty.
There you guys go. The legend, Les Bowen, joining us for Bowen on the Birds. A little extended version tonight. Lots to talk about. So we appreciate his time. And again, for all you guys out there, make sure you guys hit the like, subscribe, follow. Share this out with your friends. That's how we grew. Word of mouth. And we continue to do so and bring you guys phenomenal content every night. So make sure you guys are checking in for all of our stuff here. Well, let's get back to the topic on hand. You know, we talked a lot about the DeVonta extension and AJ Brown. Les being on, we talked about Brock Bowers, and we started talking about offensive targets in the draft. So I'm going to defer to you guys, and I'll just lead this little bit of a conversation for our last 10 minutes because I'm not the draft guru that you guys are. I watched a little more college this year than I usually do, so I'm familiar with guys. But and for everybody out there in the chat, think of offensive weapons, especially you college football junkies. Drop in a target that you think that could be realistic in the first, day one, day two range for the Eagles. That could be a guy who could come in and maybe affect this season. And we'll try to talk about those names. But, what do you guys, or who do you guys see as a really realistic topic in terms of helping out the offense?
Okay, you took me out when you said offense.
Well, we were talking offense that we teed up offensive target. I imagine we're going to do defense next week.
Yeah, we were going to do we did defense last week, but you were here.
I was sick.
You missed out. Brings PY and I had a great show talking about defense.
You guys did. Yes. You guys had a lot of great stuff last week.
It was fun.
So
you want to go first, Brinks, or you want me to?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to move off of AJ Brown in the near future, then a clone of him out of Texas is Adonai Mitchell. I talk about him almost every week.
Love him.
You just watch this guy play. I mean, he's super smooth. He's big. He's strong. Super productive. I think that's not a bad pick at 22 at all. I got a lot. This is way easier than talking about the defensive guys last week because this is most certainly an offensive draft.
Yeah, for sure.
So what position would you key in on? Is it wide receiver?
I like my guys. So if they pick one of my guys, then I'm happy. I talked about Darius Robinson and Jared Verse. They're my two favorite defensive guys. Adonai Mitchell, he's probably my favorite offensive guy. I have another receiver here out of Florida named Ricky Pearsall. Love him.
Overlap.
Love him. Tough, gritty, slot guy. I think he's better than Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey gets a lot of love because he went to Georgia.
I would disagree with that.
They're kind of the same. They're going to be like slot guys, gritty guys. And you look at that offensive line, I really think, in my heart of hearts, I think they're going to pick someone that is going to play a guard this year, start at guard this year, then kick out and, take over for Lane once he's gone. I mean, Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. And then there's this guy, I'm going to butcher his name. I had it earlier. Kingsley Sumatamata.
Okay.
He's an offensive tackle out of BYU. The guy's a freak. And like you can take a chance on these like athletic freaks here in Philadelphia because we have such good coaching on our offensive line.
Yeah.
Stoutland's the man. He can mold an athletic guy who's not as polished like Guyton or Kingsley Sumatamata into, a starter. Jackson Powers Johnson. He's a freak at the Senior Bowl. He's more of a center guard guy, though. He won the Remington Award for best center out of Oregon.
Yeah.
So, Joe Milton, I like. Joe Milton, I like a lot. If you're gonna look at quarterback later on in the draft, guy's a cannon, can run. And then Chucks, you're the running back guy, but I mean, Jonathan Brooks is my RB1 in this draft. And there's a whole big, vast space between him and that second tier of running backs. So, I mean, when a guy is so much better than everyone else in the draft at one position, that I don't think that can be ignored. Are you going to pick him? I don't know. But that's a brief summary of my offensive guys that I like. Pearsall can return punts too, which I like.
Yeah.
That's going to become big now. Like the return game has to be thought of because the new kickoff rules, right? So they're
don't
going
quite
to
understand them, but I think I kind of understand them. So there's going to be returns next year, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tom did chime in earlier, and obviously he's a big Brock Bowers guy. And Tom, if you're in the chat, Martian would like to know if we're having a
watch party.
Watch party.
We are.
I'll give mine real quick. My offensive is J.C. Latham, tackle out of Alabama, and that's just because I kind of know it's just to take it to the next step. SEC player, started a lot. I like him, but speaking of athletic freaks, right? You could probably sell me on Mims at 22.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Azarius Mims out of Georgia, Amarius Mims out of Georgia, tackle. But since I wasn't on last week because me and you were in the same spot, different locations, if Kenyon Mitchell gets past 15, I don't care what it takes at that point. I don't care what it takes at that point.
Brinks hates Mitchell because he doesn't play.
I'm not trading up to pick 15 to pick a guy out of Toledo. There's no shot. No way.
I have to get burned by Toledo the first time, not to believe in them to get burned in them by again, right? So fool me once, but that's just me.
Before we get to Chuck's names here for the last couple minutes, I do just want to circle back and let everybody know while we're hot. We got 170 viewers overall here right now across our platforms. Please hit the like, subscribe, share it out, retweet, like it. And listen, every year we have a big draft show, and I imagine we're going to do something similar this year. So stay tuned. Stay tuned over the coming days, over the coming week, and we'll get more details out once we figure all that out. But there's a reason people are asking. It is always entertaining. We always have reactions, good or bad or indifferent, right, Chucks?
Oh God, I knew that was coming.
Some live forever. Some live forever.
I like this too. If he's there at 15. Also, Johnny Newton too. If Johnny Newton falls,
I'm gonna be the odd man out. I'm gonna be the odd man out here. I am not as high on Verse as most people. I think Latu and Dallas Turner are better than Verse. To me, Verse kind of scares me. I think I get Derek Barnett vibes from Verse. So I don't know. I'm not as high, but
we recovered the fumble. That's what I'm gonna say.
Well, yeah. Want to spend another first round pick on that?
He's good on Houston.
So, before I get into my offense, guys, Jason Charles says Trey Benson is the best. No, he is not. Not in my book. He's really good, but Jonathan Brooks is I agree with Rob. He's absolutely the best running back. He's RB1. I like Benson, like I said, but I don't see how he's RB1. He's not in my book. But anyways, my favorite Eagles targets on the offensive side of the ball. First, I know Pete, you mentioned the offensive linemen. I like the guys you mentioned. The one that I really like, and I think that Jeff Stoutland really likes too, because he was at the combine and he watched this offensive lineman play and looked like everyone's saying like he was gushing over him, as Troy Fontenot. I think he's a guard with outside tackle potential. So that'd be a offensive lineman in the first round that I would really like. But after the first round, I'm going to name a bunch of day 2 guys. So Xavier Legette to me is my favorite wide receiver prospect.
He's been in there a lot in the chat.
Day two. Talk about a guy who broke out late, but the reason he broke out late was he had a lot of stuff going on in his life. If you look at Brett Coleman, his Twitter, he explained everything that happened to Legette leading up to last year. This guy, he's a late bloomer for an understandable reason, and he has so much potential to be like a next DK Metcalf. So like I really like Legette a lot. I think the upside is there. I love him on day 2, like round 2. Pearsall that Brink said, I love him too as well in the second or third round. Another tight end that I wouldn't mind taking in the third round, Jatavian Sanders, athletic guy who needs a lot of work and refinement, but the athleticism is there. If you want another tight end and you miss out on Brock Bowers, like you want a Dallas Goedert air, like Jatavian Sanders in the 3rd round. Malik Washington is another slot guy that I would love. And then day 3, if you're talking about running backs, I'm telling you, this guy I just finished watching today, Tyrone Tracy Jr. is a sleeper, like super sleeper. Like, well, actually, I can't say sleeper anymore because a lot of people have been talking about him, but for good reason. Tyrone Tracy just converted to from wide receiver to running back this past season. He has the goods, man. He is a day 3 guy. If you can get him, he would absolutely be an upgraded RB2 and has the upside to be even more than that. So I would love Tyrone Tracy. If not him, another day 3 running back is Ray Davis. So those are my favorite.
We got next week. We're going to dive in more, guys. We're out of time. But listen, thank you to the chat. You guys were hot tonight. Lots of names thrown in. Thank you to Les taking extra time with us. Good stuff. Next week, we have our full draft preview. And again, stay tuned to A2D Radio for information on our draft night coverage. Thank you to Baggio's. Make sure you guys stop in their store. Let them know we sent you in. 10% off in Mount Laurel, New Jersey on your in-store purchases. And thank you to the fam out there. For myself, Chucks, Pete, Brankman, Les, Tom Arnaud, and everybody else here at A2D Radio, we love you. Have a great week, guys. Go Birds.